Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Fremont family meeting. My name is Evelyn, and I will be helping to facilitate this meeting. I now pass the mic to co-principal Tom.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our first family meeting of the year. Thank you for joining us online. We're definitely trying to roll with the pandemic, and while we would rather be in the cafeteria auditorium with you, we're trying an online facilitation for tonight's family meeting. So we'll do our best to have it be smooth, but it's definitely a learning experience, and we're open to feedback for how to make it better for our families too. So I want to just introduce that we are using interpretation for tonight's meeting. We're going to watch a short video that explains how the interpretation works.
Para seleccionar interpretación en español, quiere seleccionar el botón abajo de su pantalla de la ventana del chat. Va a decir interpretación. Cuando haga dos opciones, inglés o español, segura que seleccionas español para escuchar la traducción en español.
Okay, so our assistant principal, Ms. Baez, will be interpreting. If you would like interpretation, we're going to refer you to this slide to show you how to raise your hand when you'd like to request interpretation. Esperamos un ratito para ustedes que les gustaría interpretación para esta reunión. Tiene que levantar mano así en la pantalla. Wait 1 minute, 30 seconds for folks to sign up for interpretation if they'd like. All right, and I see some hands still being raised. I'll give it a few more seconds to get everybody that needs interpretation. All right, I will pass it back to our amazing student leader, Evelyn, who's going to go through tonight's agenda.
Tonight, we will hear from our co-principals, teachers, one of our parent leaders, and a student perspective. We also have a raffle, and so now I'm going to ask you guys to please write your first name in the chat to enter a raffle for Shoe Palace for new Jordans and backpacks. We will also announce the winner at the end and contact you. So please go ahead and write your first name in the chat. And now I pass it back to co-principal Tom.
All right, thank you, Evelyn. So we did just want to celebrate tonight. Tonight is a very special birthday for our community. It is the 115th birthday of Fremont High School. When Fremont was built, they definitely were not doing Zoom family meetings, but they did have, we'll pull up the slides in a second and show you some pictures, but they did have horse-drawn carriages that would move in front of the school. Our assistant principal, Ms. Baez, who's helping to interpret and run the show tonight, is also an alumni and our resident Fremont historian. And so you can see right there where there were horses passing in front of Fremont High School, horse-drawn carriages, and that the building looked very different than it does today. If we go to the next slide, you can see that in the 1930s, there was a large fire that destroyed pretty much the entire school, and the school was completely rebuilt during the Great Depression. And so most of the school that you see today is from the 1930s. And the best news of all is that our community has worked hard for at least a decade to get a bond measure to build, remodel a good amount of the school. So by December of this year, we will have a mostly new facility. Finally, a 100-yard football field, a brand new gym, wellness center, fitness center, and new classroom and academic buildings as well. So we're very excited for this addition to the community, and it's been something our community has worked hard for a long time. Okay, so I'm going to transition us a little bit to talk about advisory, because that's a key part of what's happening right now for your students. So advisory is a structure we've had at the school before the pandemic, and I think it says a lot about who our teachers are, that our teachers really go above and beyond for our students and care about them as human beings and try to support them however they can. So in addition to their work as content teachers, math teachers, English teachers, etc., they really do take ownership over student academic skills, helping them get organized, keep track of assignments, make sure they know how they're doing in their classes, being able to review their Jupyter grades, and to be able to communicate with you, their parents and guardians. We have conferences twice per year, one in October and one in March. And this is a chance for you to sit down with the advisor, your student, and yourself to go review the student's progress and have the student tell you how they're doing. Another part of advisory in the past has been college and career readiness. So our advisors, especially in 11th and 12th grade, really help to prepare students for university, both researching and thinking about what they want after high school, but then also preparing. And so whether it's applications for college or financial aid, or it's creating resumes, practicing their interviews, and then getting paid internships during their junior year and in the summers. There's a lot that our advisors do to help give those opportunities for our students. And then last, and a really important part of what we hope is happening now for our students is the community building, creating connection between other students, making sure that you know adults on campus that care for you and can help you when you need help. And then also the fun stuff, the retreats and the activities and celebrations. So with that, I will pass it to my co-principal, Ms. Rivera, who's going to talk a little bit more about advisory now.
Good evening, families. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before I move into what is advisory now that we are in COVID, I want to thank you for joining Fremont and acknowledge that this must be like a very hard time for you. I too am a parent in OUSD, so I know how you must be feeling. But I want you to know that we love and appreciate you. We're here for you. So at the end of this presentation, you'll have our contact info. Feel free to contact us if you continue to feel unprepared or you need anything from us. Okay, so what is advisory now that we are in this time of COVID-19? Many of you guys have probably already heard from an advisor. This year, advisors are going to be focusing on supporting your students in getting into Google Classroom, communicating with their teachers, learning how to adjust to all these new applications that they're going to be using, help with keeping up with their assignments. They're also going to have a lot of community building activities so that they can continue to feel some kind of normality within all of this new distance learning. They will continue to have one-on-one meetings with students to kind of see where they are academically, if they're doing okay with their grades, or if they need any kind of other support to make sure they stay on top of all of their classes. In addition to that, advisors are going to be making wellness calls. And you might be wondering, what is a wellness call? That is going to be where an advisor just checks in on your student to see how they're doing emotionally, to see how they're doing just in overall health, if they need anything beyond school, so that the advisor can connect them to resources. So that is just like a little bit of what an advisor is going to be doing with your child this year, but mainly they're going to be the point person for you and for your student to kind of navigate this new system of virtual distance learning. So with that said, I'm going to pass it back to Evelyn.
Thank you, Co-Principal Tom and Co-Principal Rivera. Now I want to introduce Ms. Zapata, who is an English teacher at Fremont, and she has been teaching for 10 years. She will be sharing with us about her experience. Ms. Zapata, how has it been since March?
Hi, I'm Miss Zapata, and I teach English at Fremont High School. And since March 13th, it definitely has been challenging for both students and teachers because students and teachers had to learn a new way of teaching and a new way of education. But although there have been many challenges, there have also continued to be accomplishments. Students continue to apply for internships and participate in internships throughout the summer. Students also continued to learn different platforms to access different learning materials digitally. Students and teachers continue to work hard to pass college dual enrollment classes, as well as pass advanced placement courses, including the test that students take internationally. And including our last class that graduated, class of 2020. Our students in that class continued to get support to find jobs for after graduation, as well as get admitted to 2-year colleges and 4-year colleges, such as UC Berkeley, Cal State, Sacramento, different things like that. So we are hoping to build on some of those accomplishments from the spring and continue with even more accomplishments in the fall.
What can we students expect to do during this time that we're learning online?
So for the students this year for the online courses, students can expect to access course material from the platform Google Classroom, and teachers will be able to communicate with students through that website where students can access videos, learning resources, contact their teacher to get the different things that they need to pass their classes.
What will classes look like, Ms. App?
So classes will be a variety of different looks for this fall during distance learning. Teachers will have live classes on Zoom, but also those classes will be recorded. So teachers will post recorded classes so that students can have the flexibility to watch those recorded lessons, even if they can't attend the live classes. And then students will and parents will have access to teachers' contacts to communicate with them in a variety of platforms so that students and families will know what to do to succeed in all of those classes.
Thank you, Ms. App. I would like to invite Ms. Ana Quintero, a parent leader of 2 ninth graders at Fremont, and I'm going to be asking her the same questions.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. Can you tell us how it has been for you as a parent since March 13th?
Well, it has been a little bit challenging because my daughters, they don't like distance learning like a lot of kids, and they would prefer to be in school physically, to be able to ask teachers for support when they need it. Before they would check in with teachers before school, lunch, or after school, when teachers have office hours. But this is a feeling, that they have because of distance learning. It's something new for them. So, it's new for everybody, which I'm sure a lot of kids feel like, and they're not used to it. So I just hope, they're more positive because they're a little bit negative about it. But I'm hoping they're more positive this semester, now that they had a chance to experience it a little bit last semester.
What are some things you expect Fremont to do for you and your students?
Some things I expect from Fremont is communication, to let me know what is expected of my daughters in class, and for them to have the same quality education remotely as they would in person.
What do you think the workload will look like?
I think the workload would look very similar, about the same as a regular school day. to make sure that, they're learning what they should, and hopefully, that nobody falls behind because of the remote or distance learning.
Is there anything else you want to share with us?
I'm just positive and just hope that everybody, put some effort into learning all these new materials, parents and kids all equally, that we help the teachers.
Thank you, Anna, for sharing with us. And now, as a 12th grade at Fremont, I want to share that it has been a big change for everyone, but I really like how the teachers are so supportive, and I just hope that the teachers and all the staff keep supporting us. And I also want to encourage everyone, the parents that are here, to keep supporting your students, because I feel like that's an extra support that will make us feel more relieved, because it's not an easy thing to be doing online classes. But I really do want to thank all the teachers for checking in with us and everything. Now I would like to pass it to Miss, one of our math teachers.
Thank you, Evelyn, Anna, and Ms. Zapata for sharing your experiences. I am Sandy too. I'm one of the Algebra 1 teachers here at our school. As teachers, we came back to work about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's been calming and reassuring to know that what's going on at our school. Students' families should also get to be in the know too, because the more that you are informed, the better the decisions you make for yourself and your family. That is why I am asking families to use talking points. Some parents already have the phone app and know what it is. It's a program that translates a teacher's text message into a family's home language. And when a family replies back, Talking Points translates that reply into English for the teacher. You actually don't need to do anything extra or have the app for the translation feature to work, but there are benefits to downloading and using the mobile parents app, whether or not you need translation. First of all, for families who need translation, in the app, you can switch between translated text or the original text. You can also have the text read aloud to you, and you can change the language without having to call the school. Now, here are some benefits for both English and non-English speaking families. When you use the app, it will keep the school messages separate from your personal text messages. In fact, without the app, you can still see teachers' messages, but they will be coming from random 415 area code numbers each time, so you wouldn't even be able to save the contact number. With the app though, you can see which message is coming from which teacher or subject. And if you have more than one child at your school, the app will tell you which child the message is directed to. Having the app means that you can change the notification settings for the app and not have to have it affect your personal text messages. Also, this is a great chance for parents to get their children more responsible with things related to school. If you share your child's cell number with his or her advisor, and you both download the Talking Points Parents app, then you can be sure that your child is in the know with what's going on at school, and you can also cross-check that information with your own phone app. At a time like this, when information is changing so quickly, we need to be able to communicate with each other just as quickly. And although not many people use or check their emails, many will check their text messages. So it's essential to get our school administrators, teachers, students, parents, and families to get on board with Talking Points. Thank you. Now I pass it back to Tom.
Thank you, Ms. Tu. So we know that there's lots of confusion and things are hard to understand right now for all of us. So our goal is, as a school, is to be as clear as we can. So we wanted to take a few minutes and just go over what you can expect as parents in terms of online learning, or what is often referred to as distance learning. So one thing for Fremont is that there's 2 different ways to think about our weekly schedule. There's fixed times in that schedule, and then there are more flexible times in that schedule for your student to work independently. So the fixed times every day, Monday through Thursday, are 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. And I'll go over what that might look like in a second. And essentially the rest of the week is flexible time. And so that's time for students to work independently on assignments, to still be in communication with teachers or peers or other support staff, on Fridays to check in with their advisor, both for attendance, but also just to see how they are and get support in completing work that they need. There's a little bit of a disclaimer for this schedule is that the final number of minutes weekly is being worked out between the Teachers Union and Oakland Unified. But right now we are planning for 240 minutes or 4 hours of instructional time per day. And so that means that you can expect for your student to either be doing a class or something online directly with the teacher or working independently for up to 4 hours per day. And then the last thing I really want to emphasize is that because we are working in a quarter system, students are only taking half of their classes at one time each semester. And so there's really only 9 weeks for the student to pass their semester-long class. So if I'm taking English 1 during first period, it means that I have 9 weeks up until about mid-October to complete that class. So each week is really important. And each day that you have that class in the week is really important to stay focused and to complete your work. So I want to talk a little bit about what fixed time could look like for students. And so, like I said, it's at 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock daily. So this is something that is consistently scheduled that you can expect for your students to have the opportunity to engage in a couple different ways. One is having an online class. And I think, folks have said it tonight, how important it is that there's space to connect right now, that there's a way to be in a class with your peers, even if it's online, to talk to each other and to build community with your teachers and staff. So that would normally happen through Zoom like this, or Google Hangout or Google Meet, or another platform. Another way that students might be engaging is through small group time. So it would still likely be through an online platform like Zoom, but students are meeting in smaller groups with their peers and possibly with their teacher as well. And so making sure that they're able to kind of get more individualized support or have more collaborative work options like they would have if they were in a class working in teams. And then the last, and what we hope, what we know is really effective for our students, is one-on-one appointments. And so this is one way that we can do school differently, and in some ways, maybe more effectively, by having more personalized attention for students. And so making sure that students can schedule meetings with their teachers by appointment to check in, especially on the days of the assigned class. And that can happen online, and it can also happen by phone and getting messages, as Ms. Tu said, through talking points. So flexible time. So if we're going to ask the question, like, how should my student be spending their time when not meeting with the teacher? Most important thing to emphasize is communication. Staying in regular communication with your teachers via email, text message, checking Jupyter Grades, messaging through Jupyter Grades, and then lastly, Google Classroom, which is the platform that we're requiring every teacher and student to be logging into daily, both to assign work and to track student progress for work. So I know one thing that we're spending a lot of time on now is just helping students access the technology. And so a really key first step, if your student has not done so yet, if you're a parent or guardian listening, might be a good thing to check to make sure that your student can show you how to log into their email. Every student's email, for the most part, is s_firstname.lastname@OUSD. And if you need help finding your student's email address, you can always reach out to your staff also. The password is generally, before you change it, a 0 and a 0, and then your 6-digit student ID number or your lunch number. And so every student should be able to log in to their email using their student email address and their ID number with 2 zeros. So once you're in Google, or once a student is signed into their email, they'll see a screen that looks like the next slide. And so I wanted to point out a little icon in the right corner where there's like 9 dots together. And so if you or the student click on that icon, it'll open up all the apps available to them. And the one we're talking about now is Google Classroom that's being circled in red. And so once the student clicks on Google Classroom, it will take them to a page like you see here, where it has that student's different teachers that they will be engaging with through Google Classroom. And so for any one of those classes that this particular student would take, whether it's advisory or biology or ethnic studies, they would click on that and see a page like this. And each of those lines, so there's one that says in-class teacher feedback form, that's one assignment. The next assignment down, it says online distance learning feedback form, that's expanded. And so you can see the instructions from that teacher. Oftentimes, as you can see, this teacher has translated it into multiple languages. And you can see that the student has not completed the work yet. And so that's still something that the student hasn't done and that has been assigned to them. I think the last thing I would say about Google Classroom is this is the primary way that we're assigning work to students and getting them materials. And so Ms. Zapata talked about earlier, teachers putting together recorded lessons or making sure the materials are accessible online. It's really important for us. We know our students work outside of school. We know our students take care of their family members. And so that we know there's a lot on folks' plates, and we want to make sure that you can access your materials and still complete your schoolwork on a flexible schedule. And so using Google Classroom as the primary form of communication is going to be a really important part of that process. Okay, I believe we are going to stop there and open it up for questions. So we can take questions two different ways. One is like you see on the screen, you can raise your hand, and then I believe we can allow you to ask your question by voice. You can also type your questions into the chat if you have the ability to use the chat feature. So we'll give a few seconds to have questions come in and see what we can answer.
So we have a question from Ever Cruz. What day does the classes start and what hours will be the first day? Does someone want to answer on the panel?
So your advisory class has already started. So as of Monday, students should be engaging with their advisory teacher. If you've not heard from your advisory teacher or haven't been in communication with them by email, text, through Google Classroom, please reach out to admin or anyone on staff so we can help connect you. Academic classes will begin on August 24th. So a week from this coming Monday, students will have their full first quarter of classes.
We also have a question from Ana Martinez. How can we get access to Jupyter?
So I will say that Jupyter just got activated. I believe today is when Aries rolled over into Jupyter grades. So teachers are trying to get that information out to families as soon as possible. But they were having some technical issues with it. So I believe that today was the day that it actually started working. So hopefully you will hear from your advisor or you'll get an email from Jupyter to get started.
We also have a live question from Sherika. Please unmute your mic and you may ask your question.
Okay, I kind of spaced out with the whole 10 a.m. or the 1 p.m. thing, because my son's been getting on at 1 p.m. Is that because he's been told to get on at 1 p.m. or can he get on at 10 a.m.?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's partially dependent on the teacher. So that's why we said that the most important thing is that the students are in touch with their teacher. There might be a class that they would like to hold at 10 a.m. on a particular day. I know probably what your son has been attending has been some of the advisory meetings, which often have been happening at 1 p.m. And so we're asking families and students to hold that time as best they can each day. They could be meeting with their teachers at both of those times or just one of those times. And so part of that is based on the schedule with the teacher. And so keeping track of Google Classroom and the schedule with the teacher is the most important.
Okay, I had another question. The attendance, because I know some school, because I have children in middle school and my son is starting high school. So how is it like, will they be, like, say if he misses 2 or 3 days because we're on vacation or we go out of town, will that affect his attendance, or can he just use the recorded as his, like, how does that work?
I can answer that. So for attendance, a student has to engage with their teacher daily in order to get what you would, a present, what you know as a present. If a student's going to be absent, he still needs to send an email to either his teachers or to our attendance clerk. You should probably just letting them know not going to be able to engage for 2-3 days, and then they would have to, because you're not going to engage for the days. So I would say, and it's really at this point, a lot of teachers are asking is if they're going to complete an assignment or a simple text or a simple just acknowledging that they did something online with them can count as an engagement. Does that answer your question a little bit?
Yes, thank you.
We have a question from Alexandra. How different is the education plan, schedule, and materials at each OUSD high school? How do they all compare?
That's a really good question. I would say, I think the simple answer is they are somewhat different, and partly what we're waiting on in terms of the agreement between the union and the district is for what is going to be standard across every school. In terms of the number of instructional minutes, that's coming from the state, and the fact that there needs to be daily live instruction in some way is coming from the state. But I think our goal as a site is to be as clear with staff and families as we can about our system. And so that's what we just walked through tonight. Is not the same for every OUSD high school, but that will be our process throughout the 2020-2021 school year.
And we have another question from Joe. Will this session be recorded and available in Spanish?
So I believe that there was the translation service at the beginning of the meeting, but I don't think it's being recorded in Spanish, unfortunately.
Okay, and we have a question from Sankofa. Do you know how long we will be doing online school?
Unfortunately, we don't. Our directive is that we have to abide by the Alameda County health guidelines. And so currently, because of the spike in cases, we are not allowed to offer in-person learning. And so until that changes, we will be in online learning or distance learning. We really hope to be back in person at some point soon with all of you, but it's pretty clear that for the time being, until things change, that we will stay in online learning.
And we have a question from Laura. If someone needs extra help, how can they do it? Or maybe how can they get it?
So currently we are working on a schedule that allows for students to be able to drop in and get support from tutors from the after school program. So we will build those into the actual schedule that we have right now. If you also need support, you can let your advisor know, and then your advisor will know who to connect you with once we have those systems in place.
Cool. And we also have a question from Elvia. She wants to know if it's optional that students have to connect.
So the expectation is that all students connect with their teachers on a daily basis at the time that the teacher has set for them. La expectativa es que todos los estudiantes se conecten a la hora que los maestros han designado para ellos. So the reason why that's important is because that's going to be like your, that's going to count as part of your engagement. And also it's going to give you the instructions that you need, and you can ask questions, and it's not going to be, I don't actually have like the exact minutes that will be required for teachers to be online. But it's not going to be like a whole day. It's going to just probably be anywhere between maybe 30 to an hour. But yes, it's not optional. And if you're gonna not log on, then it's important that you let your teacher know that you won't be logging on, also for attendance purposes.
And we have a question from Miss Regina. Has the credits for graduation changed?
No, and I saw another question about grading, I believe possibly from Ms. Regina as well, and to build on Rosemary's last point, that attendance is important for us to know that students are engaging and that they are, okay, and that we're able to connect with them. But it's not something that can be graded. And so if a student can't connect on a particular day, or can't, has issues with technology, or has something going on in their family that makes it impossible for them to be online, there are still ways for students to complete the work. And most importantly, when you communicate with your teachers, you can kind of work on a plan with them to complete your assignments. But the expectation is that students do still have to do the assignments that are given to them. Teachers want them to demonstrate that they've learned. Ms. Zapata's class, students will still be writing essays and reading awesome books. In Ms. Tu's class, they'll still be doing math problems independently together with her support. And so our goal is that learning continues as closely as it could to if you were in person. In terms of graduation requirements, our understanding is that things will be the same in terms of the number of credits. I know one of the things that's being discussed is a waiver for GPA, again, because of the no credit system from last year. And so our plan is that we're doing everything in our power to support our seniors to be able to graduate this year on time. And we will work with you to make sure that they're meeting the requirements, and that as soon as they're clearly defined, that we can communicate them to our families.
And we have a question from Alejandra. If you already have Aries and it's working fine, do you still need to change it to Jupiter?
No, so those are two different systems. So you can log on to Aries and you can log on to Jupiter to check grades. So Jupiter is a more, the teachers will be keeping that up more often than Aries. So it's best that you have both. I also wanted to add, for anybody that does not have internet or is needing a Chromebook, please let your advisor know, and we will, or you can come by tomorrow between 8 and 12 to get one.
We have a live question from Fabiola. Please unmute your mic and you may ask your question.
Siri, ¿cómo le pongo el de este del micrófono? Me está hablando mi voz.
Fabiola, la escuchamos.
Oh, mi pregunta era de que a mí me hablaron el martes, me hablaron en inglés un maestro, pero yo le dije que yo no hablaba a inglés, que si me podían hablar en español, y ya no me regresaron la llamada. Quería saber qué es lo que está pasando.
Ok, todos los maestros ahorita que están llamando a casa que se han topado con un papá que no habla inglés, ellos están haciendo notas y están pidiendo se han comunicado con alguien de la oficina para que les asista a hacer las llamadas.
Ok, muchas gracias.
And then we have
Let me just quickly translate that question and the answer. So the question was, I received a call from a teacher in English and I asked for translation in Spanish. Will the translation be provided? What's happening? And Ms. Rivera's answer was that teachers who are not able to speak Spanish have contacted a staff member who will reach out in the language that the parent speaks to make sure that they get the information they need in the language that they need it in.
and we have a question from Natasha. How will the grading go? Will it be credit or no credit or actual grades?
So we're hopeful that it will be actual grades this year. That is still one of the things that needs to be approved by the MOU, or the agreement between the union and the district, though. So we can't say definitively at this moment, but we're hopeful that there will be grades at A, B, C, D, F this year.
We also have a question from Alejandra. What is the registration number for Jupiter?
What was the question again?
It's a registration number for Jupiter.
So I can take it, Rosemary, unless you're gonna say something. One thing that we're going to be doing over the next week, so we will highlight it again at next week's family meeting, but we're going to be asking our advisors to reach out to families to make sure that students and families have access to your Jupiter account. And partly we haven't done that yet because it's been slow to get started. It has to connect to Aries and our student information system, but it's essentially a way for parents to track, as well as students and other teachers, how a student is doing in a class. And so it's really important for us that you have access to that. There's a printout that we can share with you from Jupiter that has all of your access information and the steps to walk through it. We just have to wait to make sure the system is up and running correctly before we share that information.
I don't think I see any other questions.
We have a live question from username Galaxy J7 Star. Can you please say your name?
Hola.
¿La escuchamos?
Sí. Una pregunta, el lunes que empezaron las clases, grado el noveno, no, todavía no empiezan las clases.
I'll translate the question. On Monday, were the classes for ninth graders started? Has class started?
Porque mi hijo Ernesto se ha estado metiendo a un enlace que hay, pero allí no está recibiendo clase.
My son Ernesto has been logging into a link that was provided, but there is no class happening.
Sí, buenas noches, señora. Durante esta semana y la próxima, el consejero o el advisor de su estudiante están haciendo llamadas solo para conectarse con los estudiantes y hacer como preguntas de tecnología, si necesitan algo, básicamente solo para ver que están listos para empezar la escuela, pero las clases no van a empezar hasta en agosto 24.
Ok, gracias.
Sí.
So I'll translate very quickly. Classes have not started yet. This week and next week, advisors are calling families to ask technology questions to make sure that they have all the technology they need and that they're well, so that they can begin classes on August 24th.
We have a question from Natasha. So will classes be very similar to as if school was in? Example, first period and second period, 50 minutes each, and so on.
So that will be different. I think it's important for us to kind of wrap our minds around the idea that we won't be doing school like we normally would if we were in the building. Students only have 4 classes at one time to focus on, and so they're going to go deeper and engage more deeply each day in those 4 classes. Right now, there are 2 times that we're holding, 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock, for at least an hour. That may change based on the agreement, but the schedule for now is that there's 1 hour of class at 10 o'clock and another class being offered at 1 p.m. And so in that sense, it wouldn't be like a student seeing all 7 classes on Monday. They would just be focused on 1 class and have multiple class times and ways to engage with their teacher.
And we have a question from Miss Regina. Will the school holidays be the same, school calendar the same?
Yes, you can also go on the OUSD website and download the yearly calendar. So you could see all of the breaks and holidays that are scheduled.
So I am gonna try to wrap up our question and answer. We are certainly available for folks that would like to continue to ask questions, and we will share our contact information too. I think most importantly, please reach out to us if you have a question or if you need help with your student, because that's our job. And so please continue to reach out. Thank you, Ms. Kim, and everyone else who's been answering questions in the chat also. But I'm going to pass it to Rosemary to do a quick overview of School Site Council.
Thank you. So just before I move on, there is a link in the chat so you can go directly to the calendar for those of you that are interested to see the scheduled holidays and so on. Okay, so just a few minutes around School Site Council. I'm not going to take too much of your time with this, but I don't know if you have heard of Title I, but Fremont is a Title I school. And you might be wondering, what does it mean to be a Title I school? Well, any school that qualifies for this supplemental dollars is a school that has 40% or more of students that qualify for free and reduced lunch. The money then has to be used for things like English learners, special ed students, or students that have fallen behind grade level. In order to make sure that the dollars are spent the correct way and that they're aligned to supplement the education for special ed students, English learners, and students that are behind in grade level, it is required to have an SSC. And SSC stands for School Site Council. A School Site Council is a group of stakeholders, and it can you flip the slide there? It basically consists of 3 classroom teachers, 1 other school staff member, 3 parents or community members, 2 students, and 1 principal. So it's a total of 10 members. And every meeting that you have to have at least 6 of these people present to reach quorum. And so what is the duty of an SSC is basically to monitor academic school plan, monitor the expenditures, and make any suggestions on how the money should be spent or aligned or moved closer to students. So this is where you guys come in. We need at least 3 of you, 3 parents or community members to join us in this SSE. We meet once a month. Once the team meets for the very first time, we decide on a monthly day and time that we come together so it's convenient for everybody. And our first meeting will be held on Tuesday, September 15th at 4. And of course, it will be virtual. But if you're interested, please reach out to us, leave your reply in the chat, or you can email me directly. My email will be at the end of the presentation. But I would love to have you. I would love to hear from you. And Fremont needs parents. So if you want to be involved, this is a great way to do so. And we do need a president right now and a vice president. So if you're someone that loves to lead meetings and plan agendas, this is for you. So I hope to hear from you, and I hope to work with you this year. So I will pass it over to Evelyn.
We want to announce the winners of our virtual raffle that we had at random based on who wrote their names on the Zoom chat. So
We have our first winner, Angelo. Our second winner, Regina. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for entering our raffle. You will be in contact to let you know how you can collect your prize.
So now I'm gonna pass it to Anna.
Hi. So I just want to invite you guys to the first Coffee with the Principal. We usually have the Coffee with the Principal in person, of course, but we'll have a Zoom meeting next Wednesday, August 19th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. You know, if you want to come join us with your tea or your coffee, we'll be there with the principals to, you know, if you have any questions or concerns, you could check in there with them. And then also next week on Thursday, same time as today from 6 to 7, we're going to have another Zoom meeting similar to today with different information for you guys. So you could also join us next Thursday from 6 to 7. And if you know any other families, if you could let them know about both these meetings so they can also get the information that you guys had. Thank you, and I'll pass it on to Evelyn.
So now I'm gonna pass it to Mr. Rosemary, who's gonna be giving us a slide of where to contact.
All right, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us tonight. These are our email addresses, the 4 administrators, myself, Ms. Rivera, Ms. Baez, and Mr. Weiner. You can also see our school website, which will have updated information. By next week, we should have a link to each of your teachers' classes, so you can see their websites that they've been working hard on, or their digital syllabus, and the information that you need for getting your students ready for the academic year. So thank you very much again, and we hope to see you next week.